Have you noticed how tired you are without even doing much? It's not just lack of sleep. It's not just stress. You are drained because you keep losing. Not blood, not money, but your energy. Every time you defend yourself, every time you explain what didn't need explaining, every time you rushed words to fill the silence, a little more of you slips away, and it's killing you. But Carl Jung, the great depth psychologist, saw this truth a century ago. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. What exhausts you in others is really a mirror, showing the battles you still haven't mastered within. And he warned silence is not weakness. Silence is how your soul heals. Do you remember childhood? A teacher asks a question. Your hand shoots up before you even know the answer. A parent demands, "Why did you do that?" And you invent excuses. Back then, silence was dangerous. Silence meant guilt. Silence meant punishment. So we learned to defend, to explain, to fill every gap with words, to prove our worth. That training never left us. We carried it with us long after childhood ended. Carl Jung warned us about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted. It's that fake smile, that instant, "I'm fine," that desperate reply when you're exhausted. The mask keeps you safe, but it also keeps you trapped. Because the more you hide behind it, the more you disappear from yourself. And every time you say yes when your soul screams no, you don't just lose energy, you abandon yourself. Now, as adults, we live as if the world is constantly demanding an answer. Your boss doubts you, you defend. Your friend accuses you, you explain. Even strangers on the internet, and you write paragraphs to prove yourself right. And what happens? You bleed out. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You wake up already tired. You go to bed restless. Because you never stopped reacting. Carl Jung believed the human soul is an energy system, like a battery. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction consumes powers of your mind and spirit. And most people, they aren't exhausted because life is too hard, but because they waste their energy into endless, pointless defenses. They defend themselves to people who will never understand. They explain themselves to people who don't care. They argue with people who don't even deserve their attention. And all of it drains the battery, piece by piece, until the soul collapses. Imagine a bucket with tiny holes. You pour water in every day, but it never fills. That's your life when you live in constant defense. But here's the darker truth. People use your reactions against you. They don't need to shout or force you. They just press the buttons you've left exposed. That's projection. They dump their chaos onto you. And because you're always available, always defending, always explaining, you carry their shadows for them. The friend who only calls in crisis. The partner who only loves you when you're useful. The colleague who only praises when you save their mess. They're not relating to you. They're relating to the role you agreed to play. You may eat well, exercise, meditate. But if you waste your energy every time you react, you'll always feel empty inside. And this is where Jung's silence changes everything. Silence is not swallowing your voice out of fear. It is feeding the depths within. It is the weapon the soul wields to heal itself. It is silence chosen, the stillness that guards your energy, the restraint that says, I could respond, but I don't need to. This video is not about shutting people out. It's about no longer abandoning yourself. When you practice the power of silence, You stop pouring your strength into arguments that don't matter. You stop defending against people who never cared about truth. You stop bleeding yourself out for approval. And for the first time, you feel the soul begin to breathe again. When you stop being available, you will lose people, but you will find yourself. Yes, you will be misunderstood, but in return, you will be respected. Think of the ocean. On the surface, waves colliding, storms tearing at the sky. But dive deep down far enough, and there is only stillness. That's what silence does for your soul. It lets you descend from the chaos of the surface into the calm of the depths. And the deeper you sink, the greater your power becomes. But the storms you face aren't made of water. They're made of people, words, and demands. Your partner says, "You don't care about me." Old, you feel the urge to defend, to list every proof of your love. But silence lets you pause, breathe, recognize their words come from emotion, not truth. You wait until the storm passes before deciding if a response is even needed. At work, a colleague questions your choice. The instinct is to explain, to justify endlessly. But silence holds you steady. You simply let the challenge sit. You answer only to what matters, when it matters. And suddenly, you look calmer, stronger. On social media, someone mocks you. The old reflex is to fight, to claw back dignity. But silence keeps you untouched. You scroll past, because your energy is too expensive for strangers. Because silence is not passive. Silence is active. When you hold silence, you conserve your energy. You create space for reflection. You force others to sit with their own words. And often, the silence itself answers louder than any defense ever could. But silence comes at a price. The loss of being liked, the gain of being feared. When you stop reacting, some people panic. They'll call you cold, distant, arrogant. Not because you changed, but because you stopped being convenient. Your silence forces them to face their own emptiness. And most people can't stand it. At first, silence feels unbearable. You itch to explain yourself. But over time, something shifts. You realize you don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to prove your worth through words. Because your worth is not on trial. That realization is healing silence in its purest form. The moment you stop needing to be understood is the moment you finally become free. And here's the gift. Once you stop defending everything, people start noticing you more. Why? Because you are no longer cheap. Your energy is no longer theirs to claim. Your presence becomes rarer, more valuable. Silence doesn't just restore you. It begins to command respect. And what happens after the silence? First comes loneliness. You wonder if you're too harsh, if you're losing everyone. But then the silence shifts. It becomes clarity. It becomes peace. It becomes strength. This is the solitude of the strong. The moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others close, you lose people, yes. But you find yourself. And suddenly, your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was. So the next time you're accused, pause. The next time someone misunderstands, let it echo. The next time silence feels uncomfortable, sit with it. Because that silence is not emptiness. It is medicine. That silence is sovereignty being born. Carl Jung gave us this truth. To become powerful, you must stop leaking. To stop leaking, you must embrace silence. And the moment you do, your strength returns. In this video, Carl Jung showed us how silence heals the soul, how it restores your inner power. But in the next video, Machiavelli will reveal how silence conquers the world, how silence becomes a weapon, a darker tool that bends others to your will. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because we're only scratching the surface of the psychology of power. Remember, everyone has a place where they bleed energy. What's yours? And how do you use silence to guard your strength? Share it with us in the comments. I want to hear from you.